Alright everybody, welcome to the 20th episode of the Comedically Hardheaded podcast. I do want to say thanks to everybody who has stuck it out with me during our little mini hiatus that we had. I really just wanted to designate some time to finish recording my second album because I was running way behind schedule. That's kind of one of the cons of being a creative person. You just keep going and going and going, and something just doesn't give you the cue when it's like, okay, the project's ready, this is the time to release it, and you're like, no, I must do more. Wait, I think I want to change this song. I'm going to switch this around. And before you know it, it's been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 additional months. And it just keeps going. But the album is out, and I'm glad that it's finished. It's actually a very great album, by the way. You should go and check it out. It is called the Hardcover, and it's under the name Calvin Michaels. You can find it on all digital music outlets. You can also find my first album, Symphonic Euphoria, under the same artist title, Calvin Michaels. So yes, I appreciate those of you who stuck it out with me, but we're here. So let's get into it. Where we left off, because this is another episode and the final episode of my Italy series. So if we remember, when I was in 3rd grade, my family, we moved to Vicenza, Italy, because my mother was in the military and she had been stationed there. And initially, it was a really rough transition. There were a lot of things that were just so culturally awkward to me that I couldn't quite understand, and things were very different. One of the biggest beefs I had at the time was that there was no cable. So you had to find creative things to do with your time. That may be one of the reasons why I have all these little gifts and talents now, because for 3 years I didn't sit in front of a TV. And it wasn't by choice, it was just like there was nothing to watch, so you had to go be creative. You'd start building houses out of Legos and popsicle sticks and finding all these different things to do. And so initially, Italy wasn't that great. I was fighting with kids at school all the time. I had this horrible teacher. I peed on myself in class. Yeah, I mean, it was all kind of crazy stuff. And then we got to the 4th grade year, things got better. I found my pocket. I found better friends to hang with. I did the talent show. Even though the boy band that I was supposed to perform in, I got kicked out of the band, and that's okay. We still had our own little group and performed and still lost. You know, things just had gotten better. I found my pocket. So now I take you to the last year of the Italy experience. So this is my 5th grade year, and at this point, things are much better. I found my pocket. Everything is going smoothly, and I'm actually enjoying the experience of living there. It's starting to feel like home, because at this point it's been 2 years and some change. And so now Italy is no longer the strange place. So let's just jump right into it. So it is the summer, and it's a special day because it is my 10th birthday. And I don't know about you, but when I was a child, birthdays were a big ordeal, especially when you were like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years old. Like, birthdays were something serious. Like, those were the days that you look forward to. Christmas and your birthday. For some kids, it was Christmas, their birthday, and Halloween, but I didn't really celebrate Halloween as a kid. So for me, it was birthdays and it was Christmas. Let me tell you how serious birthdays used to be when I was a kid. Like, when I was 5, 6, 7, maybe even 8 years old, the biggest clapback you could ever have, the best way to insult somebody, the quickest way to get under somebody's skin, the biggest way to just really shake the table, have somebody hurt, just pissed off at the world, was to not invite them to your birthday party. That was the biggest way that you could come back from any kind of insult that somebody threw at you. Like, when you'd be like 5 or 6, and I don't know, you tell the kid, like, yeah, you got a big old head, and he'd be like, so, well, you can't come to my birthday party. And you'd be like, I don't want to go to your little stupid party anyway. And so you talk all that trash, and then a few days later in class, they start passing out them invitations. And you watching them pass them to everybody except for you. Like, they're even passing it to the other kids that they don't even like, but you not getting one. And you be in there so hurt. Like, so hurt. Like, that crap used to be something serious. And don't let it be a situation where the other kid's parent was gonna bring ice cream and cake to the classroom, or maybe even some cupcakes, because you would have just been talking trash at recess earlier. The other kid was still running his mouth, and that's why my mom's bringing cupcakes and you're not getting any. And you still talking trash. I don't care. I don't want your little nasty dry cupcakes. My mom has better cupcakes anyway, because my mom, she gets them from a special place. Yours came from Kmart. And you just be talking all this trash and everything, and then you get to class and you'd magically get amnesia, because you get back to that classroom and you see all that ice cream and cake and everything, and all of a sudden that kid was your best friend again. However, that kid did not forget about what you said, so now that kid is gonna make sure you're the last one called for ice cream and cake. Alright, listen, and if school had budget cuts, you already didn't have any spoons to eat the ice cream with. They just gave you a fork for the cake, and you had to eat the ice cream while it was still nice and fresh. But of course, you the last one called, and at this point the ice cream has melted. It's no longer even ice cream, it's just cream and everything. And of course you still got that fork, so you can't even scoop it up. You just gotta sop it up with the cake. But anyway, so birthdays were something serious. One last bit on this birthday subject. So my brother and I had this tradition where we troll each other when it's our birthday. It used to really work well when we still lived in our parents' house together, but now that, we live on separate sides of the country, it's harder to do it. But I don't remember what TV show we saw, but we thought it was so funny. It was this TV show where it was the character's birthday, and so that guy was like, well, you know what? It's my birthday. We have to do whatever I want. And so we would do that crap to each other every year. And one time I got him so good. I I had to be about 11 or 12, and I'm guessing he was maybe 5 or 6. And he's downstairs, mind you, it's my birthday, and he's watching Pokemon, and he used to love that show. He was hooked on that, Pokemon, gotta catch 'em all. I never really was into that show. Really, to be honest, I was never really into anime, but he was obsessed with that show. He'd be down there watching it and singing the theme song and everything. And so it was my birthday, so he's watching it, minding his business, having the time of his life, and of course, me, the older brother that's a troll, comes down and I take the remote and I'm like, oh, it's my birthday, we have to watch whatever I want. He's like, give me the remote back. Michael, give it back, I'm watching this. Nope, it's my birthday, we have to watch what I want to watch. And I want to watch the TV Guide channel. And so I put it on the TV Guide channel. Remember, that was a channel where if you needed to see what was coming on, you'd put it on that channel and all of the shows would scroll up and down the TV like super, super slow. And it would suck if you missed what channel it was that you were trying to find out the information for, because then you'd have to wait like another 2 minutes for the whole cycle to start over again. He wanted to strangle me that day, and I just kept going at it too. I'm sitting here watching all the channels scrolling. He's like, Michael, turn it back. And I'm like, oh, I'll turn it back when I find something that I think we can both watch. The news is on. Oh, rocket power. Judge Judy. Oh, Pokemon. Put it on that. And I'd be like, oh, well, Mom said at church, they said Pokemon means pocket monster, and that's demonic, so we have to watch something else. And I mean, he would like scream, and instead of him just going to a different TV in the house, he would sit here and fight me on the couch all day. Good times. Alright, so back to my 10th birthday. So we're having a subtle party in the backyard. There's a few friends from the neighborhood, my parents, my brother, and we have the cake, and it's time for me to blow out my candles. Now, this was the time period when I really used to believe that if you made your wish and blew it out, it would really come true. I used to really hold on to that for dear life when I was a kid. And so at the time, I had this little girlfriend named Dominique. I can't remember her last name. I want to say her last name was Coy. I don't know. She's probably married or something by now. But anyway, I was gonna make this wish, and my wish was gonna be that she and I could be together forever and live happily ever after, because I was crazy over this girl. And so I'm closing my eyes, I'm getting ready to do my wish, and out of nowhere, when I open my eyes and get ready to blow the candle out, the candle has already been blown out. And I look to my left, and it's Marcus. Marcus then blew my candle out. Now, mind you, he was about 3.5 at the time. So, babies and younger kids, they understand birthday cakes, you blow them out. So he just saw the candle and figured, oh, I must blow. He didn't care whose cake it was, so he blew out my candle. And when I tell you the rage that ensued deep down inside, because I was like, oh no, that was my chance. It's a happy life. What have you done? You've ruined everything. Like, I was hot. Oh, I wanted to kill him. He was going to die that day. I had so much hate in my heart that day for him. I was so mad. And so I make this big commotion about like, oh my God, why did you do that? Man, like pissed off. All right, just livid about it. And I wouldn't shut up about it. So the rest of the day, I'm over here pouting, pissed off, until the point where my dad was like, Michael, go outside and play, because you get on my nerves. Go outside. Go outside. Go. And so my parents kicked me out the house and made me go outside and play. Look, that's probably why I'm not married to Dominique now. Thanks, Marcus. Anyway, so I go outside and I head over to Ricky's house, because Ricky literally lives maybe 2 or 3 doors down. Now, this is the same Ricky from the last episode that kicked me out of the boy band because he wanted to do the talent show as a soloist, and so he kicked me and my other friend Marcus, not my brother Marcus, but my friend Marcus, kicked us out of his group, and then he still ended up getting second place in the talent show, and we didn't place at all. So this is that Ricky, but me and Ricky were real tight. So we're trying to find something to do. We're roaming the neighborhood, and in the neighborhood, I've said this before, I think in the first episode of this series, as far as living in Italy, the neighborhood had a youth center. It was kind of like a boys and girls club type of center, but at the time it was being renovated, because initially the center was just one big giant room. So they decided to extend the center and add a gym and some new classrooms and a program space and a few other things. And so at the time, the newer portion had been completed, and now that was the part that was open. The old part that everybody used to come to was the part that was being renovated at the time. You were not allowed into that part. But the idea was they were going to turn the initial or the original building, that was going to be like the video games room and everything like that. And so the entire center was still closed. It wasn't going to open for another hour to begin with. But when it would open, everybody would come to the new part because the original portion was still under construction. And so me and Ricky were walking around because the place is closed. We're looking through the windows and everything, and we're trying to look through the windows of the old part that they've just redone, because we want to see, what's it gonna look like? What's the video game room gonna look like? And it looks so awesome, because pretty much the room is pretty much completed at this point. They've got all the wiring and everything done, and they're really just doing some last minute touch-ups with the paint. I mean, the furniture's already in there. The room's pretty much gonna open in a few days to begin with, and so the room looks so cool. It's all kind of video games and TV screens and all kind of stuff. And now this is funny because big screen TVs were something serious back then. So there's these 2 big giant big screen TVs that probably weigh 500 pounds, because that's when the big screen TVs were those big giant boxes that could sit on their own, and they'd have like the wood frame or anything like that. And so it's these two big giant big screens. And so while we're walking and tracing the building, we see that there's a door that's open, and we're like, oh, well, let's just go in because nobody's around anyway. And so we go in and everything like that, and we start walking, and we're like, oh, this is so cool. And you can see like where they're gonna put the posters on the walls and everything, and the video games have like these video game chairs you can sit in. Everything is so cool. I'm like, this is so tight. And so Ricky sits in one of the chairs and everything like that, and I was like, oh, we should play the game because nobody's gonna be here for another hour because it's not even open yet. Let's just go ahead and play some games. They left the door open. And so we go, and they have Nintendo 64. And at the time, I need you to understand, Nintendo 64 was something serious back then, okay? Nintendo 64 is the same way kids feel about PlayStation 4. I mean, and then the best part was, in the game console, they had Mario Kart. Now, none of these games were even really opened yet. Like, all of this stuff was gonna be brand new, but they had Mario Kart. And Mario Kart at the time, that was Fortnite for us. That was Call of Duty, that was NBA 2K, that was just everything it could be. And so we're sitting there, we're trying to open these games, I'm trying to get the thing open, and we're trying to figure out how to plug up the TV, and we're just totally invincible that day. I don't know what was going through our heads, but we just totally felt that we were gonna get away with this. And so we're trying to get the game set up, and then I hear a noise, and we look to the right. It's one of the staff members, and he's outside, and he's looking into the window at us inside of the room that's not supposed to be open, that nobody's supposed to be in. And in one hand of one of the kids is the video game, in the other hand is a kid holding the cord trying to figure out how to plug it behind the TV and everything like that. And this staff member was somebody that was pretty new. We didn't know him that well. He didn't know us that well, but he knew our faces. And so I'd freeze up, like, I don't know what to do. And Ricky's like, run! I'm like, where? And so Ricky just runs straight to this other door and runs straight out of it. So, of course, and the guy's like, hurry, get over here. And I sprint, because I ain't getting in trouble too. And I mean, the two of us, we ran for our lives. We ran. I had never been so scared in my life, because I just knew we were going to jail, because it was like, oh my God, we broke in. Now, as a kid, I was always one to act super bad and act like I was really, really tough and everything like that. But the one thing that would humble me quickly was just the thought of my father having to step into an equation because I've done something foolish, and now he's been called to come and correct things. That used to freak me out, and that was the kind of smoke I never would want. And so, I mean, I ran so fast, and we didn't know where we were running to. And mind you, the guy initially was chasing us, and then he stopped after maybe a block or two. And I mean, we kept running, but he had to have known who we were, because he saw too much of us. He saw us long enough to remember what we had on, to remember what we were doing, to remember where we ran to. I mean, we ran, and what happened is we ended up running to my friend Keith's house, because that's some trifling stuff. You in trouble, you gonna run to somebody else's house and get them in trouble too. And so we run to my friend Keith's house, who lives in the neighborhood as well. And so we're knocking on his door, all huffing and puffing and everything like that. And so he finally opens the door, and he's like, hey y'all, what's up? And we're over here, not much, man. What you up to? We just coming to hang out. You want to do some video games or something like that? And so eventually, me and Ricky are freaking out because we don't know what to do. And so we tell Keith, like, look, man, we're in trouble. We think the police may be after us. We think the police have been called at this point. We broke into the youth center and we got caught, and we think the guy saw us and he's gonna call the police on us, so we need somewhere to hide. And Keith was like, what? Well, y'all can't come over here because I just got off punishment. Y'all not getting me in trouble. And we're like, well, we need help. We gotta figure out something. And so we came up with the bright idea to go back to the youth center and act like nothing had happened. And so we're like, why don't we all change clothes, and if we go there and we bring Keith with us, we should be good, because we can change clothes, put on different colors, and then we come back with 3 people, we should be fine, because the guy would have remembered seeing 2 kids, but if 3 kids come up and we have on different clothes, we should be good. So we go to my house, and I put on a different shirt. Ricky changes his whole outfit. All I did was change the shirt. I figured jeans all look the same, it won't matter anyway. And then Keith, he just was with us. He didn't have to change or nothing. And so us 3 idiots go right back to the scene of the crime. And I just knew this was gonna work, because I'm thinking, no person in their right mind would go back to the scene of the crime. So that should pretty much make it seem that we didn't do anything, because if we really didn't do anything, we wouldn't be here, right? And so we go back over there and we try to walk in there all super bad. Hey guys, what's up? Because at this point the center's been opened. It's open to other kids in the neighborhood and stuff are coming in. And at first everything is smooth. Everything is good. Everybody's hanging out, and we're all in the actual part that's supposed to be open, not that part that we were in. And everybody's in there hanging out and all this other stuff. And I don't even remember what I was doing, but I just remember I look and I see that same staff member that saw us, and all of a sudden my whole demeanor changes. I can't even keep my face together. Now Ricky, on the other hand, Ricky's a little bit smoother than I am. He just has always been a really easygoing, laid back, can play off anything type of guy. Me? Oh no, I wear it on my face. I am not a good liar because I give myself away too quickly. And of course, Keith hasn't done anything, so he's just really in this to see how this is all gonna pan out. And so I'm like glued to Keith. I'm like right by him everywhere I go. And so that staff member is with another staff member who's somebody that's like more so in charge, like one of the more senior staff level members. And they come and they're like, you two and him, I need to speak to you guys. I was like, oh shoot, here we go, shoot. And I'm like, okay guys, let's stick to the plan. Because our plan was, we were just at Keith's house all day and this was our first time there. That was the plan. And we were like, just don't say nothing else and that's it. Man, I crumbled as soon as we got in the back room. I couldn't even keep it together. I was already crying. And the guy's like, what are you crying about? And see, it's funny because if this were today, I would have played right into that. Like, you know what? It's my birthday. I'm just so excited to be alive. I'm just so happy. I'm just so moved. It moves me to tears. And as a matter of fact, I would still like to be alive when I get home to my father. But, so I'm tearing up, shaking, because in my head, I'm like, man, I'm going to jail. And mind you, it was not even that serious. The guy at the center was like, listen, we already know what y'all did. Y'all went in here. It is what it is. We probably should have done a better job of making sure the room was locked. You guys just need to understand that. You guys should not go into areas that you're not supposed to go into. You guys knew it wasn't open. Y'all shouldn't have been over there. You shouldn't have been touching stuff. You shouldn't have been doing anything like that. And that's it. And so the staff member gave us a choice. He said, we could be suspended for 2 weeks, and then, after 2 weeks we could come back, or he could call our parents, and then we could come back the next day like nothing happened. And I was like, we ain't calling my parents. I guess I'll see y'all in 2 weeks. And Ricky was like, actually, I want you to just tell my parents because I want to come, because there was going to be a dance at the center like the next week. He's like, actually, I'd rather you just tell my parents. And I'm like, no, well, you talk to his parents, don't talk to mine. And the guy was like, okay. So for the next 2 weeks, you couldn't find me anywhere near that center. I stayed at home. I didn't even go outside because the neighborhood was so small that a lot of times, in order to get to the youth center, you had to drive past my street to get to it. And I'd always be afraid that if I was outside, especially if I was near my house, like out front or something, that one of those staff members would drive and see me outside and realize that that's where I lived, and then they'd come knock on my door and talk to my parents. So I was in the house for 2 weeks. My mom was like, you don't want to go to the youth center? No. I think I just want to read, Mom. Yeah, I just want to finish reading the Boxcar Children. I couldn't do it. I was shook. All right, shook. That was my 10th birthday. 5th grade was a lot of fun. To be honest, I think that was my favorite grade to experience during elementary school out of K through 6. I really, really loved 5th grade. And I have to give some of the credit to my teacher as well. I had this teacher named Miss D'Antoni, or D'Antoni, I can't remember. She married this Italian man, so that's where the last name came from. But something about that teacher, how do I say this? I had some really great teachers, I had some really crappy teachers, and then I had some teachers who you just always remember forever. And I have about 4 teachers like that. Miss D'Antoni was one of them. My drama teacher, Mr. Rockoff, was one. My 6th grade teacher, Miss Gunderson, was one. Who else? Oh, my other drama teacher, Miss Adams, was one. And is there anybody else I can think of from K through 12? I mean, those are probably the main 4. Oh, my history teacher, Mr. Hoseth, and another teacher, Mr. Holdaway. Those were the 6. I always remember. Those were the ones where I had the most growth. But the thing about Miss D'Antoni was she was a new teacher. I don't remember how old she was when she started, but I think we were her first class ever. And she was like a fresh, I guess I'd say she was a few years out of college, and she just had this very whimsical spirit. You just felt like you always had to do your best. You never wanted to disappoint her because it would just eat you alive if you knew that you disappointed her. And so she just made school so much fun. And mind you, this is such a contrast from Mr. Robert Shaw from 3rd grade that we talked about, who was this older man who was just very traditional, and there was no music in the classroom and no colors and no fun, and everything was just so punitive, and you had this old dusty chalkboard and horrible class. And Miss D'Antoni was the total opposite. If you made a mistake, she'd be like, oh, that's okay, but what did you learn from your mistake? She was just very free-spirited. I absolutely loved that class, man. As a matter of fact, I never got an A in anything until I was in her class. I was always kind of just like a C student who would get a B here and there. But this was the first time I ever started getting A's. The first A I ever got on my report card was in her class, and it was in history. And so it's kind of funny that now you look today, I'm really kind of a history buff, and I'm really into social studies and everything like that. But yeah, Miss D'Antoni was my favorite teacher, and everybody wanted to be in her class because she had the fun class. Like, every time there would be any kind of competition amongst the classrooms, our class always won, and all the fun people were in my class. Like, it was me. Now, Ricky wasn't in my class. He was in this guy, Mr. Pellerito's class. Mr. Pellerito used to get on our nerves because for some reason, like I said, we're all military kids. We're on a military base in Italy. He used to make us go, and we used to have this moment where we would sing all these patriotic songs for like 30 minutes because we were supposed to always sing at the high school graduation because the elementary school, the middle school, and the high school were all in the same building. So whenever the high schools would graduate at the end of the year, the elementary kids would sing all these patriotic songs for the graduation, and God, it would be torture because one, I didn't even care about any of these songs, and he took this crap so serious. I don't know if he was like ex-military or something, and so it was an insult if we didn't take the song seriously, but the way he would cuss us out and take away our recess if we weren't singing right, and so we'd be in there and he'd, all right, sing it how I told you to sing it, and we, give me your tire, you're poor. That's not it. It's not poor, it's poor. Come on. Give me your tire, you're poor. Say it that way. And you'd be like, what the heck? And so you'd have to sing that. Then you'd have to sing God Bless America. Then you'd have to sing I love my flag, my beautiful flag, the red and white and blue. And then you have to do it again. And then you'd have to do the national anthem. I'd be like, what the hell? Like, hated it. So nobody wanted to be in Mr. Pellerito's class because he was tripping and he was mean. And then the other teacher that was for 5th grade was, I think I talked about her in the 3rd grade episode, Miss Juniper. That was the lady who kept claiming she was an astronaut. Like I said before, I have went to Google. I have not found her in anything yet, but she claimed she was an astronaut and she went to space. My beef with her was she was the water fountain police. Like, you couldn't be on a water fountain for more than like 3 seconds, and you'd come from recess and you'd be thirsty and it's hot and you just finished playing kickball or something. You run to that water fountain, and of course there's 20 kids in a line, and she's right there regulating the line. So you get to the water fountain, and as soon as you get there, she said 1, 2, 3 next, 1, 2, 3 next, and like, if you didn't push that button fast enough, the water didn't even make it to your mouth good, and you already had to get out of line. So everybody liked Miss D'Antoni. Miss D'Antoni was so cool. She was so cool, in fact, I remember I invited her to the Christmas production that we were having at my church, because the church was on the military base, and she always would say, if you guys have like band recitals or anything, I would love to come. I love to see my students do great. Like, this was that kind of teacher, I rocked with Miss D'Antoni. And so I remember we invited her to the Christmas production at the church, and half the kids in my school went to the same church. Like, as far as the black kids that went to church, we all went to the same church because there was only one church to go to. Man, listen, after that day I said I would never invite another teacher to anything church related ever again, because when I tell you they cut up in that church that day that she showed up, I was like, man. So me and a few of the kids in my class, we're in the kids choir at my church. Like I said before, if you haven't heard the other episodes, on a military base there was only one church building, but several different churches shared the same building, and the service that we were at, that was the Vicenza Gospel service, and they pretty much merged all of the denominations that black folks tend to go to, whether it's Baptist or Kojic or Pentecostal or AME or anything like that. Put them all together in one service. It's the gospel service. And so a lot of the kids in my class that went to that service, we were all in the same church, and we were also in the kids choir. And so we sang our little Christmas song that the kids choir had to sing, and then we were done. I just wanted her to see us singing, and she could go after that. But her and her husband came, and they sat for the whole service, and so they sat through the dance team, because there were some teenagers, and they danced to Kirk Franklin Revolution, and then mixed it with Jesus is the Reason for the Season, and then this is where everything started shifting. By the way, speaking of Kirk Franklin, it's always funny because I remember when Stump came out, and there were so many parents who were just up in arms. They thought that was the wildest thing ever. Like, they thought that song was too sacrilegious, just one step from the devil. They getting too worldly. And so there were all kind of special meetings and conventions and stuff held about that song and where gospel music was going. And I remember it was chaos. And it's so funny because you get to 2019, Stump is pretty much on like Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood level in comparison to what they do today. I said, see, that's funny. But anyway, the teenagers had just finished dancing to Jesus is the Reason for the Season. And then right after that, because this was just the era of Kirk Franklin for some reason, the adult choir, I remember they sang Now Behold the Lamb. So listen, by the time they finished singing about that lamb, everybody in there was so touched by the song. And so, like in black churches, if the song has been received really well or connected with people, people start to get emotional. The choir does 500,000 reprises where they come back and sing the song 10 more times and keep going. And so the song that initially was 4 minutes ends up being 13, and then they got a shout at the end. And so they had just just finished singing I'll Behold the Lamb, and the preacher got the mic, and, I know we here for the Christmas program, but we must reiterate, Jesus. I'm like, oh, they're about to start. Is the reason for the season. Like, he kept saying it over and over. I said, Jesus. It's like, oh, Lord. And mind you, I'm 10, and in my head, I would get embarrassed when, like, everybody in the church would start shouting and stuff, because I'm like, oh, God. I used to think it was weird when I was a kid, like, okay, y'all are in here being real loony at the moment. And now I got this white lady in here with all these black folks, and y'all are scaring her. That's how I looked at it when I was 10, like, oh, my God, poor Miss D'Antoni. And so, I mean, that music gets to cranking in the band. And they're doing all this shouting and everything, and there's this lady in the same row with Miss D'Antoni. She starts shouting, and I mean, that lady cleared out the row. She got up, and she bent over and started running backwards, all into Miss D'Antoni. Ladies' butts just all in Miss D'Antoni's shoulder. I was like, God, y'all are so embarrassing. This wasn't even supposed to be that kind of service. Right? I was such a heathen at the time. I was so mad. I'm like, dang, man, y'all always gotta do that all the time. But in actuality, Miss D'Antoni actually liked the event. She thought it was good. She told us how great we had done, and she said she had a whole lot of fun. So I was like, okay. Because I just really didn't know if all that shouting and stuff scared her. I wasn't used to seeing white people in black churches as a kid, so I didn't know how they would respond, because that was just the headspace I was in at the time. Now, there is one moment I'm not too proud of, and do not judge me when I tell you this story, alright? Again, I was 10 years old, I was thinking like a 10-year-old, it's where I was at the time. And so, we're at the lunch table, and there's this kid that's much bigger than me, way bigger than me, and he's sitting directly across from me. Now, I haven't seen this kid too many times, he's not in my class, I don't even know what grade he's in. I think he was in my grade, or maybe a grade older, maybe one grade younger, I don't know. But it's this kid, and we're eating our little lunch and everything, and it's like, I swear it had to be a Friday, because on Fridays, or every other Friday, I remember, they would give you these little chicken strip things, and they'd give you mashed potatoes, and you get green beans. And I was obsessed with the chicken strip things, because they tasted just like, they kind of taste like the chicken fries or something you could get at Burger King. And you get your little ketchup and dip it. Oh, Fridays were lit, because it was either that, or it was pizza, and it would switch off every Friday. So I was hype about my little chicken finger things. So I'm sitting there eating, and the kid, he's sitting across from me, and so he's sitting at our table, and he keeps taking his finger and dipping it in my ketchup and then licking his finger with it. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, bruh. Well, we weren't saying bruh at the time, but anyway, what are you doing? And so I'm over here hot, because I just watched this kid who I don't know randomly stick his finger in my ketchup and then eat it and act like nothing is wrong. And so I'm pissed off. It doesn't help. I'm sitting next to Keith, who's over here hyping me up, and me and Keith are in the same class, so he's just really getting me all hyped, because Keith and I were cut from a different cloth. Like, we just had very different ways of doing things. So Keith, if it were him, Keith would have took that whole tray and knocked the kid out. Me, I'm going to talk a little bit and try to figure out things before we got to fight. And so I'm like, what are you doing? And so he does it again. I'm like, I swear, if you don't stop, I'm going to, and then out of nowhere, he's like, what are you going to do? And I was like, oh, shoot, what am I going to do? And I'm like, you better not do it again. I know that. You'll find out. When I tell you that kid dipped it again, I was like, okay, all right. And so Keith is over here just hyping me up, and it doesn't help. I just seen the next Karate Kid or a terrible Power Rangers movie or Beverly Hills Ninja, one of the movies. So I got some moves. What you want to do? And so I get up and I swing. Now, mind you, like I said, he's sitting across from me at the lunch table. This is one of those tables where it's the long table, and on both sides there are different benches. So I swing, but my arm is not long enough to reach his face. So as I miss his face and my arm goes down, it lands in his food. Now he thinks I'm trying to mess up his food. So he gets up and he climbs onto the table ready to fight me. The next thing you know, the two of us are fighting. And then out of nowhere, you see his specialist come. Yes, specialist. Turns out he was special needs. And so he wasn't like, how do I say it? He had, I guess, he wasn't limited physically with anything. He just, whatever the social condition he had was, that's what he had. And I guess at the time, they were trying to mainstream him and see how he would do amongst the other kids in the class. Because, again, I didn't know what class he was from. And so he most likely was in a different class with the other kids who, needed a specialist to work with them at the time. And so the specialist comes running over, and she comes and starts yelling at me. Now, mind you, homeboy done climbed on the table. He almost got me yanked up by my shirt, and I'm swinging and just hitting air, hitting anything. Just, please, God, let me land a punch, please. And the lady, what are you doing? What are you doing? So they calm him down, because now he goes and he's standing in the corner having a tantrum staring at the wall, and I'm getting chewed out by like the lunch monitor, the specialist, the teacher, one of the people from the cafeteria side, and ran over as far as the staff members that are collecting the lunch tickets. And it's like 4 adults yelling at me like, have you lost your mind? You do not put your hands on because I think all they saw was me swing, and they didn't see anything he did. So of course I'm getting cussed out, and it was so bad. It was so bad. And then they had to tell Miss D'Antoni, and I'm like, oh God, now she's not gonna like me anymore. And I'm over there mad, because I didn't start the thing. And really, looking back, my question for the specialist would have been, exactly where were you while all of this was escalating, because this was like a 2-3 minute little tension thing that built up. It wasn't something that just happened spontaneously. There was enough time for him to dip his fingers in my ketchup and me tell him to stop and then him do it again and tell me what he's gonna do and all this other stuff. And I'm like, well, where was the specialist? Because, this is before people would have probably been on their cell phones checking social media and everything, because cell phones at the time, if you had one, didn't even have a screen. It was just a phone with buttons. You just call and hang up. And if they did have a screen, it was the green screen with the black letters. So there was nothing else you could do. There was no internet access. There was no phones. And so, I don't know. I'm guessing the specialist wasn't paying attention or what. And maybe, I guess, when you're trying to reintroduce kids into an environment that they haven't always been in, yeah, maybe the specialist wanted to step back a little bit so he could feel that, he was doing everything on his own. But I'm like, you definitely needed to run in a little bit faster. But she show up when I do the swing and miss. That's okay, though. Yeah, that was a terrible day. And fortunately, I didn't get in too much trouble. Some of the other kids at the table started explaining what happened, but I still got in trouble for throwing the punch, even though he done already did everything else. But whatever, I'm not even gonna get pissed about it because it's 20 plus years ago. Anyway, moving right on. Then there were 2 crushes I had during this time period. Now, mind you, Dominique and I were no longer an item. I still blame my brother for blowing out my candle. He messed up my relationship. All right, it was done after that. But no, so there was this girl named Brittany. I can't remember her last name to save my life, but she was a 6th grader. At this time, like I said, I was a 5th grader. She was a 6th grader, and everybody used to call her Moesha because she used to have the braids just like Brandy when we were little. And I was crazy over Brittany. Brittany was taller, and I think really what it was, and probably thinking like a nasty little boy who was going through the changes, Brittany was one of the first girls in elementary to start getting a chest, so all the boys were after her and everything. And so I just never stood a chance. Brittany didn't see it for me at all. Like, I used to try to I didn't know how to even approach the girl because she seemed so mean, but she was so nice to everybody else. And so she ended up dating this kid named Kali, and I couldn't stand it because Kali was on this rival basketball team. If you remember my episode when I talked about being the only black kid at the summer camp in Germany, Kali, and in that episode I talk about like playing basketball against all these different teams. Kali was on one of the rival teams that ended up beating us in the final championship back in like 4th grade. And so I already didn't like him to begin with. And so he ended up pulling Brittany because he was a 6th grader. That was literally the only reason I didn't stand a chance. She didn't talk to 5th graders. She only talked to 6th graders. It was like, whatever. And so Brittany and Kali would be on a little tetherball thing all by themselves together. Like, so annoying. I was so happy when Kali had to move back to America because I thought I had a chance with Brittany and I still didn't. But then, like I said before in the earlier episodes, living in Italy was interesting because you'd make a friend and before you know it, they had to go back to America, or maybe their parents got stationed in Germany, or they got stationed in Korea, or so every time you thought you got tight with somebody, they had to leave or you had to leave. It's not too bad when you're in elementary, but I can imagine what it must have been like for high schoolers that were trying to have these serious relationships and then one has to move back to America or something like that. Or I don't know, you ask a girl to prom and then the week before prom, their parents get stationed back in America and you don't got a prom date. But anyway, and at the same time, there was a girl named Candace that moved into the area. And Candace, I thought, was the prettiest thing that had ever walked the earth. Looking back, like I used to always say, the actress Melinda Williams, they favored each other. Like, Melinda Williams is the actress she was on The Wood. Like, she played the opposite of the young version of Mike Epps. And she was also the actress that played Bird in the TV version of Soul Food. They kind of favor each other. I'm sure I haven't seen Candace since we were like 11, but I'm sure as an adult she probably favors Melinda Williams even more now. So I was absolutely crazy over Candace, and I was like, I gotta date her, I can't mess this up. And so I remember I tried to think of everything that went wrong with Brittany, and Brittany's big issue was, you're too young for me, I need a real man. And because the girls at this time are so much more mature than the boys. And so I remember I had this whole plan mapped out because I'm like, we're gonna be an item. And so I remember I took my school picture because the school pictures had come out, and in that picture I remember I didn't smile because all of us guys, we were trying to be super hardcore and not smile in our school pictures, and all of us look stupid when we look back at the pictures today. I don't know what kind of facial expression I thought I was doing, but I looked like a clown. So anyway, but at the time I thought I was really doing something. And so I had the school picture, I cut it out, I wrote her this letter, and I also had like all of the lollipops I had collected from the barbershop, and I had taped them up and tried to make them like a bouquet. And so I had that, and I had it in like a grocery bag. And so I gave her Oh no, I didn't even give it to her. I gave it to my friend Ricky to give to her. Now mind you, I gotta tell you what was in the letter. Cause again, like I said, all of the 6th grade girls were not doing this thing where they would talk to the boys that were younger than them or in a different grade. And so I wrote this letter and I'm like, hey, my name is Michael and, I'm really supposed to be in 6th grade, but they cut my age back when I was born. So, I'm in 5th grade because of that. But yeah, I'm really supposed to be in 6th grade. And so you wanna go out with me? Yes or no? And so I give everything to Ricky to give to her, and so Ricky goes to give it to her at the playground, and I remember I was standing on the side of the building kind of hiding and leaning back and just watching and everything like that, because in my head, he was going to give her the note, and then she was going to look at it, and she was going to say yes, and then she was going to look in my direction and ask where I'm at, and then I would just come out, and I'd come out there super, super smooth. And that day, I had on my baggy pants, because my parents had finally bought me a pair of baggy jeans, so I was like, oh, I am so dope today, with my feelers on. What's up? And so, I'm waiting for her to look in my direction, and she never looks in my direction. I'm like, what the heck? But I see Ricky coming back. I'm like, okay, all right, well, he must have did the job because he's not coming back with the bag, and I see her eating the candy. All right, good. All right, everything going to plan. And so I'm like, Ricky, what did she say? And so he comes to my ear, he's like, I'm gonna tell you. And I'm like, what did she say? And he goes, no. When I tell you, my feelings were so hurt. It hurt so bad. It's so funny doing this podcast because I literally relive these moments while I'm telling these stories. Like, my feelings were so hurt. I was like, I'm not good enough? What? Oh, I was hot. I was pissed. Oh, it was so funny. But, rejection is rejection. It is what it is. Candace ended up actually being really cool. We ended up being friends in elementary. She just would not give me the time of day. And she would not budge on the idea of not dating, anybody younger than her. So I dated her friend, this girl named Monica, instead. Anyway, moving on. That was just a really great era. There are lots of fun memories to look back on. And again, like I said, this was the time I was really getting introduced to a bunch of different sports. Like, I pretty much, at some point in life, played every major sport you can think of. Football, soccer, track, baseball, basketball. I mean, I really used to just get it in with a lot of the sports. The main 3 sports I played around that time were baseball, basketball, and soccer. Now, around this time, I was kind of transitioning out of basketball because I just realized that wasn't really my gift at all. I had such a strong left hand, and a lot of times when I would shoot, that left hand was so strong that the ball would always just shoot straight to the right because I was pushing too much off the left hand all the time. And then the last year that I played, my dad was the coach. And so, man, I got cussed out every day. Must shoot the ball. So I was like, yeah, this ain't gonna work. Let me stick with soccer, because soccer I was pretty good at. And then, true story, I don't know if you can tell from my videos, for those of you who follow me on YouTube, but sometimes you can see it in my pictures. My 2 front teeth are kind of twisted outward just a tiny bit, and it comes from 2 incidents that happened. One was at the gym, on the base. We were at the basketball court playing in the gym, and I went to shoot the ball. And I know this sounds cliche because you see it happen on so many sitcoms, but I went to shoot the ball, and of course the ball hit the rim, it bounces back, it hit me straight in the mouth. And so it chipped my left tooth a tiny bit. And then literally like a few weeks later, my team, we had a soccer game. I was playing halfback, and somehow, I don't remember what happened. All I remember is I got kicked in the mouth, literally in the exact same spot. And so if you ever look at any pictures, like those 2 teeth, they're just twisted a tiny bit. It was never too bad where I was like, I need to get braces because I want my teeth to be a bit straighter. But yeah, I said, yep, I have all kind of permanent marks from my childhood. But I really enjoyed the sports because we got to travel and go to so many different places. We got to play all over northern and central Italy, and of course we played in Germany, and we traveled through Austria and go through Switzerland and all these different places, and so it was a really great time. Speaking of traveling, some of the field trips are really dope too. I remember, I don't know if you've seen this on like Nat Geo or the Discovery Channel, but there's the guy called the Iceman, and it's this guy who pretty much, he died while he was in the Swiss Alps. Or no, not the Swiss Alps, the Italian and Austrian Alps, because the Alps, the mountain range, that's just that whole section of Europe, that like Switzerland, part of France, part of Germany, part of Italy, part of Austria, and everything like that. And so it's like they found him right on the border of like Italy and Austria, and so he was frozen solid, and his body was preserved for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, and so he still had like his skin and his eyes were still in the body and everything like that. I mean, you could still tell he was dead. He didn't look like he just died yesterday. You could tell he'd been dead for a while. And so I remember we took a field trip to go see that. It was all the way in Austria. And the only thing I used to hate about field trips, and this wasn't even just an Italy thing, I think they do this with a lot of schools, you had to fill out that stupid bus packet on the field trips because they pretty much just wanted you to sit on the bus and shut up. And so they give you this packet with like 30 pages and you had to fill that whole thing out. And it had to be complete by the time you got to school the next day. I mean, you wouldn't be no talking on the bus. Everybody's struggling to try to get that packet finished. And then don't let it have a scavenger hunt too. You got to find a brick. You got to, and you'd have to find all this while you're sitting on the bus looking out the window. You got to find roadkill. You got to find a red car. You got to find a bridge. I'm like, man, this is crazy. So yeah, those were always some really fun trips to go to. One of the funniest moments I remember from traveling is one time my mom and I think we were in Florence. And so it was something related to the church we were at. And so my mom had on this really, really nice, outfit. I don't remember what it was. Something very, very formal. And I was just in like a regular, like some slacks and a shirt or something like that. And so we were in this hotel and me and my mom were trying to find, where you could get the dinner and everything to eat at before we went to whatever event was at the church. And so we were looking around and of course this is the hotel. Everything's in Italian. None of us can speak it or read it that well. And so we're walking around and so we go to this room. When we open the room, it's like this kind of banquet hall. And so as soon as we go in the room and we go in the banquet hall, you just start hearing all kind of applause, like, and people just clapping and standing to their feet. And we're just sitting there looking, and we are so confused because I'm like, is this for us? Okay. What's going on? And then, the guy comes, sing. And then this other person comes in who's like this American person who was probably from one of the military bases. And long story short, they thought my mom was Anita Baker. Like, they thought, because Anita Baker was performing that night at the hotel, literally at the same time, which is so funny. And then it turns out Anita's one of my mom's favorite people. She's like, she's what? So then my mom wanted to stay, but she didn't have tickets for the show. I was like, Mom, you should have sang. Because listen, if that was me, let me go somewhere and I get mistaken for, well, I don't think I can get mistaken for Maxwell, but if everybody closes their eyes and I get my little falsetto pocket, I might be able to pull it off. I would have played that crap off and started singing or something. But yeah, she was too scary. She didn't do it. This was also around the time I starred in my very first radio commercial. Well, I didn't star in it. I was in the commercial with like 15 other people, but still, I was in a radio commercial and it aired all around the military base and all around the military bases in Italy, so I thought it was kind of cool. And so at our school, they used to have this shadow career day festival where for 3 days, they'd have people coming from all kinds of industries, as far as the career world or the corporate world and everything like that. And they would come to the school and introduce you to that field of work, and then you got to be hands-on, and then you got to come out with like some kind of finished product. And so the very first year I was pissed because when I got to Italy in 3rd grade, I got there in the middle of the school year and they had already have the kids already sign up. So when I got there, they just put me in anything. And so I had to be a surveyor the first time and I hated it. All you did was walk around with like a freaking stick and this bubble and take pictures of the land, before they build buildings and do roads. I was like, who wants to do that? When you're 8 years old, that wasn't cool because all the other kids were in like broadcast journalism. They were at the TV thing and this kid got to go be a chef at the mess hall. I'm like, I want to do the fun stuff. I don't want to do that. Other folks got to work at the pound and play with the dogs. And here I am with a ruler outside measuring the street. And I was like, this is not fun. And so I made an effort to try to make sure I did something fun. And then 4th grade, I couldn't get in the ones I wanted to get into because they were all filled. So 4th grade, I had to go to some kind of landscaping crap. I'm like, well, how come I keep getting the slavery jobs? They had me out there planting flower bulbs in some kind of garden somewhere, some kind of mess. But 5th grade, I was able to get into the broadcast journalism one, but they couldn't get me in TV, so they said, you can go to the radio. I was like, I'll take it. And so they had to shoot a radio commercial for that same youth center that I got in trouble for earlier. So it was a youth services commercial, and it was like, youth services is cool. And they had this little rap beat in the background, and all of us had to like sing. It was like they wrote the song, and everybody was given a verse, like me and like 14 other kids, and you'd say your little verse and everything. And I mean, we thought we were so tight. And then they gave us the commercial on a cassette to take home, and I had that commercial on me for like 2 years, and then one day on accident I recorded over it, trying to record something off the radio. And then God, I'm so pissed, and I can't even find a commercial nowhere because this crap is literally 20 years ago. You wouldn't be able to find it anywhere. I'm so pissed about it, but oh well, it is what it is. Speaking of the radio, one of the best gifts my parents ever got me was a stereo system. I was so happy for that gift. They got it to me that Christmas. Long story short, the youth center used to always have a dance every 2 weeks. Every 2 Fridays there would be a dance. And at the dance, sometimes they would have a dance competition. And if you had the dance competition, you could win a really great prize. And so I always used to want to win because the prizes were always good. It would be like you'd win a Game Boy, you would win a keyboard, like a piano to play, and sometimes you'd win like shoes. And for a few weeks, the grand prize was this boombox stereo. And I wanted it so bad because it had the CD player, it had the cassette player, it had the radio access to it. It was like this blue shiny thing. It just looked really, really cool. It looked like one of them things. I don't know if you had to do this at your school, but when the school ever had some kind of fundraiser and they wanted you to sell chocolates door to door or something, or sell stuff from their online catalog, if you sold enough prizes and enough goods, then you could order something out of this little magazine, and in the magazine would be all these cool prizes like a Slinky, and it would never equate to the amount of stuff that you raised as far as revenue, but the radio looked like something that would come out of that catalog, just something you couldn't find at any ordinary store, and I wanted that stereo system so bad. And this is how the dance competition would go. After we had our regular dance for like that first hour, then the DJ would ask, who's gonna be the competition folks. And mind you, we're all like 9, 10, 11, 12, because there would be like 2 or 3 different kind of dances. There was the dances for elementary kids, but you had to be in 4th grade to 6th grade, and then of course they had the middle and high school dances separately, so I was still in the elementary one. But anyway, they would ask who wanted to do the dance, and so the few folks would raise their hand, and they're only gonna pick like 5 people. So first you gotta get picked in general, so you'd have to fight and claw to get picked up in there, and mind you, it ain't but 50 kids up in here. And so you get picked, and then the DJ would play a song, and a kid would dance to it, and then the DJ would play another song, and the next kid would dance to it, and then whoever had the best dancing, whoever got the best reception from all the other kids there, and the staff, and the DJ, that would be the winner. And so if you won, you got the great prize. If you didn't win, you get 2nd or 3rd place, and second or third place prize would be like a candy bar or soda or something much smaller. You know what I mean? And so for a few weeks, the grand prize was that radio or that stereo system. I wanted that boombox so bad. I wanted it. And so finally, I got in the competition. Of course, I lose. All right. A few weeks later, I get into the competition again. I lose. And then, so I'm at home practicing my moves. And at this point, I have seen Janet's Velvet Rope Tour, and I done learned a few steps or two. So I'm about to come with it. All right. It's on, because this lady had moved to Italy from America. She had just recorded the concert and had it on VHS. And so, she let us borrow it. I started watching that crap. Oh, I was ready. I'm about to kill it now. I got some moves, man. And getting that competition. And so they let the other kid go, and they play, I don't even remember the song. I just know it was something real hype. It was probably something like All About the Benjamins or More Money, More Problems, something real upbeat. All right, cool. Now, around this time, it's 1999 at this point. Ricky Martin has just come out. So guess what song they give me? Everybody else got all these super dope, songs with some crankage to it. And then I get The Cup of Life. I don't know if you remember that song, that here we go, ole, 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 go, 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 ole, ole, ole. And then I was like, what? So they play that crap, and I didn't know what to do to it. So I lost. I was hot. I was so pissed. I went home. I left the dance early, and my mom felt bad for me, because I think she saw me in the little living room practicing to the little concert on the TV. I just knew I was going to win that day. I had my little chain and stuff on. And so that Christmas, they bought me a, I don't even think it was Christmas. It had to be after Christmas. But either way, they bought me this stereo system, and it was like a nice one. It had like the 5-disc changer. You couldn't tell me anything. Like, that was the best gift they could have ever given me, because I feel like that's what opened the doors to like my musical ear. And because also at this time, like I said before, living in Italy, you didn't have the same access to everything as far as entertainment when it came to what they were doing in America. There was no cable, and so I couldn't just turn MTV and BET and VH1 and see what everybody was doing, or I couldn't turn to the box or anything like that. And so literally, the only way you could watch music videos was if you had a satellite and you could get Italian cable, but my dad wasn't paying for that. And then with the radio, the other reason I really wanted my own stereo was because my parents had a stereo system in the living room, but I didn't know how to play the stereo system without it hooking up to all their big speakers, because my parents used to party back in the day, so they had like speakers. So even if you just wanted to play a subtle song, the whole house would start shaking, because them speakers were so loud and I didn't know how to turn everything off. And so I wanted my own stereo. So when they got me that, I swear that was the best gift ever. Because then I could also listen to the radio as well, because the system they had was so throwback, I don't even think it had access to the radio. And so I remember I used to sit there and listen to that radio, and then even going back trying to listen to the radio, the R&B and hip hop hour, it came on at a time when my parents would be in the living room watching TV, so I couldn't turn the radio on then. So I was so happy to have my own. Like, that was the best gift they could have got me, because then right after that, I started buying CDs when I had money, or begging them to buy me a CD every now and then. And then, the rest is history. So yeah, that was always a great gift. I'll always say that was one of the best gifts my parents could give me. That and a keyboard. And life. Oh, and then there was this one time, my poor little brother. So at this point, because it's almost time for us to go back to America anyway, like our time, we were supposed to move back to the United States in January of 2000. But I'll get to why we had to come back a little bit earlier than expected. But anyway, my little brother at this point is, I want to say he's about 4 years old, or going on 4 if he's not 4 already. And so it had stormed that whole week. Lots of rain, flooding, everything crazy. And so anyway, everybody's in the house. Marcus is in his room. I'm in my room, probably playing with Legos or something. And my parents are in the living room watching TV. And out of nowhere, Marcus starts screaming, like screaming hysterically, like somebody's killing him. I'm like, what the heck? And so my dad goes in there, like, what's wrong with you? And Marcus keeps saying, bugs, 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 bugs. And so my dad looks, he doesn't see anything. He's like, Marcus, I don't see nothing. So my dad goes back and finishes watching TV. And then my mom goes in there. She doesn't see anything either. And so I felt bad because Marcus is just in his room having a meltdown. And my parents like, Marcus, you better get it together in there. So I feel bad and I go in there. And so here's the thing. Our houses on the military base, like, they were built in the 1940s. Like, they were built right after World War II. So they're older cobblestone buildings that have lots of cracks in them and everything like that. And so with the rain, it makes the house susceptible to different bugs and stuff that can come in. And so I'm looking and I'm like, Marcus, I don't see anything. And our house had marble floors. It's like these marble floors with like these patterns that were brown, black, and white, like little brown, white spots all over the whole floor. That's what the floor looks like. Like if you just had black and brown confetti and covered the entire floor with it, that's what the floor looked like. And so he kept saying, bugs, bugs. I'm like, I don't see nothing. And so I was standing there and I'm like, Marcus, where? And he's having a whole meltdown. And then I feel something like itch my foot. And I look and I'm like, it's an ant. Hey, where did an ant come from? And so I look and I'm like, do I see more than one? And so I look and I see a few like concentrated by his bed. So I'm like, wait a minute. So I get on my knee and I look under the bed. Now under the bed, there was this computer desk that my dad had bought that he was going to set up for, his computer he bought. And I look, and when I lifted up that sheet, thousands of ants everywhere. Like it was a whole nest, and they had made like a nest in the box. And I guess my theory would be that the rain had pushed whatever ants were outside into the house through the cracks in the foundation. When I tell you, I sprinted out of the room like, Mom, there's ants everywhere. Like I was freaking out. And then my mom, when she could finally see it, because my mom and my dad, they just couldn't see it because it was like an illusion that nothing was there. And I'm like, I don't know how y'all didn't see it, because it looked like the whole floor was moving once you finally realized what was happening. My mom ran, she got rage, just started spraying. Just spraying everywhere. I mean, all of us were high from the raid up in there. She spent so much bug spray. We were high. We had to open all the windows and everything, turn on the fans. My mom started bleaching the floor. She threw the whole box away, which my dad was pissed. You threw my desk away. They had ants in it, Michael. What are we supposed to do? Karen, I paid all for that box. And so, I mean, it was so bad. And then poor Marcus, they still made him go in that room and lay down and go to bed afterwards. And he was so scared to go in there because even though they got rid of most of the ants and everything, my brother wasn't having it with them. He was like, nah, man, y'all didn't believe me. I told y'all what I saw, and everybody in this family ignored me. Marcus was done with us, all right? But, around this time, there was also a lot going on in the world. And I'll always say that my experience in Italy is what opened my eyes to seeing things much differently, because Italy was the first time I experienced, pretty much the ills of the world chip away at my own innocence as a child. That was the first time I recognized that people were not going to like me, not even because of my race, but just from the country I was from. And so, around this time, a few months earlier, let me backtrack a little bit. In 1998, we started bombing Iraq. We were beefing with Saddam Hussein, and so you had that happen. If you don't know, Italy is one of the countries in NATO, and so was the United States and Germany and a lot of these other places. And so now at this point, you had Slobodan Milosevic over in Yugoslavia, who I believe he was trying to invade Kosovo, which was another country. And so the United States got involved with the foreign policy and everything that was going on with Kosovo and Yugoslavia, and so we started bombing Yugoslavia, and pretty much the Italians that were in the area were not having it with us. They were like, no, you Americans, don't come over here with that mess and that NATO mess. Look what you guys are doing. And the other thing is, when you look at a map of Italy, as I believe on the right side of Italy is the Adriatic Sea, and right across from it is Yugoslavia. And so you had a lot of people coming into Italy from both Kosovo and Yugoslavia. And so the Italians were getting pissed, like, oh my God, you got a lot going on. The Serbs are coming in here. And so we started getting all kind of bomb threats and death to America messages, and you know, the school would have to go on lockdown on occasion. It got so bad that our school buses had to be bomb sniffed every day, and then police escorted. And then the Italians continued to have a lot of protests right outside of the housing area, because again, there was the military base, and then the housing area was not on the base, it was down the street from the base. And so they had to start having additional security all around the housing area, and there would be lockdown hours where you weren't really allowed to leave the housing area if there was going to be a demonstration around the area. And so I remember one day I was on the way to school. We were on a bus, and the bus got to the front gate of the military base, but it couldn't get in because all the protesters had blocked the gate. And so what I saw, I remember looking out the window, because you know, they were trying to tell us when, you know, they're protesting, try not to look at them, you know, look at the floor, or look at your CD player, do something else, don't give eye contact, just leave the people alone and everything like that. And so I saw there were people who were standing on top of the church, because the church was the first building next to the gate. Like, you could, if you hopped the fence, you'd be on top of the church, literally. And so there were people on top of the church, and they were throwing eggs at our bus. And then, you know, any car that was trying to get into the base, you know, people were cussing them out and F you Americans, this, that, and the third. It was a very interesting experience. I wasn't afraid. I just was like, I don't know why everybody's mad, because you're taught one thing, and then the world sees things another way, and everybody has a different perception of what was going on. And being a 10-year-old living on a military base, of course, the way that everything has been presented to you is that all these other people around you are bad, and you guys are the chosen ones because you're American, and everybody is jealous of you and hates you, and you guys are the ones protecting the whole world. And so that's kind of what you're taught. And then, but while I was sitting there, I was like, I don't think that sounds right, because I'm looking at all these people, and they look like irate, they look pissed off and concerned. And so it started making me kind of question a lot of things around, like, and I started thinking, like, well, why are we bombing these random people, and why are we over there, and why is this happening, and why is that happening? And like, it got to the point where they started protesting outside of our neighborhoods and everything. And so my father was like, we getting out of here. Like, my kids are not going to be around the place where they got to get bomb sniffed and stuff every day, because at this point my father was no longer in the military, and so he was trying to find a way for all of us to move back. But my mother couldn't leave until her assignment was up. And so the nail in the coffin was, there was, I don't remember if it happened by our base. Oh wait, backtrack, I gotta go back. One of the nails in the coffin, when I still played basketball, we had a basketball game at Camp Darby, which was the military base over in Livorno. And so while we were playing the basketball game, somebody set off a pipe bomb in the trash can, or the dumpsters outside of the gym. And so, and it was actually a really scary thing. Like, you're playing, you just hear a loud boom, and you hear people start screaming. And if you've ever been in a gym where you hear, you know, a commotion and you see people running and screaming, it can be kind of terrifying. And so now, fortunately, nobody was hurt. It was nothing too serious, but we all had to evacuate the game. The game got canceled, and then the MPs, which military police, they checked every car before you could get in your car and drive back. And so that was kind of like one of the last straws. But then when they got to the protesting around the neighborhood, and some of the people who were protesting, you know, because really the Italians were protesting, they just didn't like the fact that the United States was involved with what was going on in Kosovo and what was going on in Iraq, and they didn't like the fact that Italy was brought into it, and nobody wanted to go to war and everything like that. And so, you know, I remember somebody had threw like something over the fence into the neighborhood, and it blew up. It wasn't like a big bomb or nothing. It's, you know, something small, like a firecracker or something. And so, you know, my mother, because she was the only one in the family that was still in the military, they had a lot of troops like working the neighborhood and patrolling, just trying to make sure that nobody was in danger inside of the neighborhood. And it was weird because, like, when we'd be playing outside, like, it's just a regular day, like outside playing kickball or something, or, you know, walking through the park, and there were all these armed troops just walking around, and it was just like your norm. And then, like, I'd see my mom walking with her gun, and she had already told me, like, when I'm in my uniform and my gun, you can't come up to me, you can't come bother me, I'm on assignment, so you can't, you know, you can't come and try to hug me or anything like that. You got to stay out of the way, and really you need to be in the house, kind of. And so I had to stay in the house. But yeah, my long story short, my dad was like, we're out of here. This is it. This is enough. We got to go. Plus, to be honest, my dad was ready to go back to America. he wasn't happy in Italy because, one, he had gotten out of the army a few years earlier, and because there weren't really a lot of jobs, like I said in the other episodes, he was working at like the commissary and Burger King and like the military bases version of Home Depot, and a lot of the people were a bit younger, so socially these weren't the people he would run with, and he couldn't take his boat and go fishing or anything like that. It was just a different ball game, and my mother felt the same way as well. And then Marcus was getting older, and they really wanted to make sure he was in an environment where he could develop properly. And then of course me, I hadn't seen all kind of stuff, and so because there were all kind of things that were like, Italy is a beautiful country, but they're flawed just like every other country in the world. One of the things I noticed too was that they had a really big issue with racism, especially towards Africans, and I think I talked about that, where depending on what part you were in, Africans weren't even allowed in certain stores at all. You couldn't come in there, and the only reason we would sometimes be allowed into some spaces is because they knew that we were like American military African Americans, so they let us in because they knew at least we had some money. We weren't gonna be in there stealing, because that was the perception they had of many Africans. And they also had an issue with gypsies. Like, true story. This sounds crazy and maybe even unbelievable, but in our neighborhood, like, one of the things that would happen is a lot of times the nationals or the Italian nationals and everything like that sometimes had free reign into some spaces. And so one time there was this lady who was in the neighborhood and just walking around, and me and Marcus were in the backyard playing, and it's this white lady with this big giant bag, and she had on like all black and these shades, and she thought my brother was just the cutest thing, because at the time he was, like I said, like 3, maybe 4. She thought he was so adorable, and so she kept trying to pick him up, and I couldn't really figure out what was going on. I just was like, okay. So I was just kind of standing there looking at her and everything like that. And initially what had happened was me, my mother, and my father were on the porch out front. My brother was in the backyard playing. My mom was like, go in the back and check on Marcus really quick, make sure he's good. Because all of the houses didn't really have like serious hardcore fences and everything like that. And Marcus had been riding his big wheel. And so he rolled around in front and he went to the back. And the rule was ride to the front, go to the side of the house, and come back around. And so he had been on the side of the house for more than like 2 minutes. My mom was like, go check and make sure Marcus is good. And so when I went there, that's when a lady happened to be there. And so I'm standing there, the lady keeps trying to pick up Marcus, and I keep telling the lady, you have to put him down, and she was trying to act like she couldn't understand English. And I was like, you can't pick him up, you have to put him down. And so then I like screamed for my mom to come over there. So my mom rushes to the back, and she's like, what, hold up, can I help you? Because my mom, like, the look on her face, it was like this magical switch that goes off where mom goes into like protective mode, ready to like lay hands on anybody. And the lady, all of a sudden, she can speak English out of nowhere. She's like, oh, he's just so cute. He's so beautiful, baby. And my mom was like, put my child down, put him down. And so she's like, what are you doing like in my backyard? Because like our yard, we didn't have a fence that, like, how do I say it? We had the backyard. There were fences on the side, but not fences on the very back, because that way me and my brother could run straight to the park and everything like that. And so my mom had called like for the MPs to come over there, and it turned out the woman was actually a gypsy, and she had just been arrested a few weeks earlier for trying to like kidnap some kid on the other side in the neighborhood, because listen, they do have human trafficking over there as well and everything else, and who knows what they were trying to do. But like, it turned out that woman was somebody who had been like trying to kidnap children and everything like that. And so it was just a good thing, like my instincts told me like something is not right, because anything could have happened. I don't know, that woman could have hit me upside the head with a brick and ran off with my brother, but I guarantee you she would have gave him back after 5 minutes, because he was a bad child at the time, so she would have changed her mind. Anyway, so yeah, it was just a lot going on. And so we finally got the assignment to go back to America, but my mother had to stay until at least August. And so at this point, it's June. So my mother had to stay for another 2 months. And my dad was going to move me and my brother right back to the United States right after we got out of school. So the last few weeks of school will go by, and it was kind of sad, because at this point, I actually liked Italy. I didn't want to leave at this point, because I liked all my friends. I really liked the teacher I had. As a matter of fact, I think I remember crying on the last day of school, because I knew I was never going to see any of these people again. And Miss D'Antoni wrote me the nicest little letter. I think I still have it. It's funny, me and Miss D'Antoni are Facebook friends today. Like, the craziest bit is she lives down the street in Maryland. I haven't ever really taken a chance to meet up with her ever again, but I just keep it cordial with the Facebook thing and leave it at that. But yeah, so the last day of school was kind of sad. I remember I cried because I didn't want to leave. All my friends, like me and Keith, were really tight, and Dwayne and Dwayne was already gone, but Marcus, I think, had just left around the same time too. But Keith was really tight. I think Ricky around the same time, he was gonna be leaving shortly after. It was just weird, and so I didn't really want to go right off the bat, but it is what it is. And I remember when we finally went back that day because my mom still had to stay. So I remember we had moved out of the house and everything. My mom was staying with one of the friends for like the next 2 months. And what scared me was I didn't know if my mother was gonna come back. Like that bit kind of made me nervous because around the same time, there were these little paper pamphlets you kept finding in the neighborhood, and on the paper it would be like a picture with like a soldier's head cut off and like "Death to America." And so I kept, and the soldier had on like the same thing my mother would be wearing when she had to patrol the neighborhood, which used to freak me out. And so I remember we went to the airport, and because we were flying back as civilians, we didn't fly back on the military flight. We flew out of the Venice airport. We flew from Venice to Brussels, and then Brussels to Atlanta, and then Atlanta to Savannah, and off to grandmother's house we go. And so I remember we were in the airport. Oh God. And I thought I was good. I had to give my mom that hug, and something I didn't know if I would ever see her again. Because in my head, I thought like we were at war or something. And so I remember I cried. I did not want to leave my mom. Because in my head, I felt like it was supposed to be my dad that's supposed to stay, and my mom is supposed to go with us. Because dad is supposed to protect us, and I didn't see my mother as a protector, even though she was ready to lay hands on that gypsy lady. And so I was really, really scared. Like I didn't know what was going to happen because we kept getting bomb threats and "Death to America" this and "Stop doing this." And you know, when you see people throwing eggs at your school bus because they don't like you, and really you're just a naive child and you're just the victim of what society's doing around you, all of that can kind of really freak you out. So I had no idea what to expect. So I cried because I thought my mom was gonna die. And so, you know, we go back to Italy, and then listen, that was the scariest flight. The flight from Italy to Brussels was so scary because every time the captain would have to make an announcement, this captain was very fluent in multiple languages. He would make the announcement in like 6 different languages. He'd say something in Italian, and then in French, and then in English, and then whatever the other 2 or 3 languages were. But his voice was like, "Attention passengers." I was like, I didn't know what that was. I thought he was saying we was about to crash or something. That used to freak me out. But yeah, but long story short, you know, we get to Italy, or not to Italy, we get to Savannah, Georgia after flying for 50,000 years. You know, the flight from Italy to Brussels, I forgot was how long. It was a few hours. But that flight, my God, from Brussels to Atlanta, that had at least be 8 or 9 hours. I was like, how long is this thing? It was such a long flight. And I was so happy that by the time we got to Atlanta, the flight to Savannah was only 30 minutes. But, you know, when we got back to Savannah, I had never been so happy in my life because I hadn't seen my grandma or anybody in the family for 3 years. The entire 3 years that we were in Italy, we never went back to the United States. So you only heard from these people, you know, in the summer, or on the phone, I'm sorry. And so, you know, finally I get to see my grandma and my cousin Brandon and my aunt Sylvia and my cousin Tiffany and all these people. And then at the same time, my cousin Michaela, who, if you remember, I've talked about her in I think the title is called like SmackDown Summer at Grandma's or something like that. Michaela was born, who unfortunately these past few weeks passed away. I'll talk about it in my live video for those who follow me on YouTube. But you know, this was the first time I got to see my cousin Michaela, because Michaela was born while we were in Italy. So at the time she was like 1.5, cute little baby, just adorable. But she recently passed on the 11th, which is crazy because she passed on the exact same day that my father passed, 4 years to the day, and within the same hour. For those who follow me on YouTube, as I was doing my live video, literally as I got off the live video and went to bed, Michaela's mother called me to say Michaela just passed away. I'm like, what? But anyway, this is not supposed to be a sad podcast, so let me brief it back up. But yeah, so you know, overall, Italy was a it was a very interesting experience. There were some moments that were really high, some that were terribly low, but overall, I definitely think it's an experience that shaped my personality. You know, I always give a lot of credit to Howard University as far as my experience there, but, you know, there was a lot that happened as a child while I was in Italy that I was introduced to that I definitely think opened the Pandora's box. And I always say Howard just taught me how to manage everything that came out of that Pandora's box, if that makes any sense. So yeah, that's the episode, and, you know, we will see you on the next episode. It's crazy because the next one will be episode 21, which means this podcast is now old enough to drink. Anyway, I'm out. Until next time.